Today we're diving into self-discipline, which can have an infinite effect on endurance, focus, business, money, outsized returns, and relationship. It is everything. Can you be successful at self-discipline in multiple areas of your life? Do you have to sacrifice what you love most to succeed? And lastly, is pain a part of the equation? I'm Will Mosley. I've struggled with self-discipline all the way up until this year, until I didn't. It took me 35 years to gain self-discipline. I'm hoping that this video right here saves you over 306,000 hours of your life. I personally think that self-discipline comes natural to some and is extremely difficult for others. I'm in that camp. It's tough. I have ideas every single day, and not changing my direction, zigzagging around, feels terribly unnatural. I remember Casey Neistat saying in one of his vlogs, and I'm paraphrasing, okay? Pretty much having a new video, a new deadline every day was the best thing ever for him. It gave him something new every single day. I'm the same way. I'm a 7 days a week person or 0 days. Nothing in between. I struggle. I can't do things every 3 days or every 4 days or every other Thursday. That feels like hell. It cripples me and truly results in lackluster results. The conundrum to this is if you want to do anything spectacular in life, you have to do something really hard in the right direction over time, a long extended period of time, the same way. Super boring, right? I think my goal with this video is to debunk self-discipline for the squirrels, the super squirrels out there like me that just are all over the place, just moving and grooving, but cannot stick. I'll break down self-discipline into 4 parts. 1, AI and self-discipline. 2, the sacred calendar. 3, hard work at 100. And 4, beautiful burnout. This has always blown my mind. 99% of you that watch this show regularly aren't yet subscribed. Our goal is 50%. Could I ask you a favor before we start? If you love this show and like what we're doing on the channel and want to support us, the free, simple way you can do that is by clicking the subscribe button right now. My commitment to you is I'll do everything in my power to make this show better and better every week. I'll listen to your feedback. We'll go deeper into the self-development questions that you'd like to hear, you'd like to have answers on, and we'll continue to bring the energy. Thank you. Okay, let's jump in to part 1, self-discipline and AI. Are you using AI? It's this tremendous force that it can improve your self-development now and probably to the end of time. It's this ability. Before, a lot of times what I would do before AI is I'd have all these different thoughts that I'd have. And a lot of times I'd post these like on Twitter. I didn't really journal. I think a lot of people do journal. There's nothing wrong with journaling. I think that's great. I'd write them down on Twitter, and then every now and again, this kind of podcast style would be a good ability for me to kind of start to talk deeper about these things in my mind, and it's almost like self-therapy. That's one part of how I used to kind of go about a lot of my self-development in context to my own self. You know, obviously they're like reading and listening to massive amounts of books and podcasts and all these different things that bring new light. That would kind of be maybe probably the catalyst. And then I'd kind of write down stuff and then I kind of talk about it kind of like I'm doing now. And that was great. That was a great loop of being able to kind of dive a little bit deeper into self. But with AI, once I discovered how to have a conversation in AI, in all the different thoughts that I had, it really changed everything. Like, with just kind of looking at some of my conversations with my with my AI, I'll just read a couple of examples of this, and this will come back to self-development. Also, thanks for dealing with the sun kind of going in and out with us. I'm trying to kind of get this thing pretty well adjusted. All right, we're good enough to see for now, right? So you got investment strategies overview, change Facebook page name, heretic opening summary, years to hours conversion, subscriber growth strategy plan, YouTube video outline SOP, income and expenses plan, early business story comparison, interest comparison for 30-year loan, like all the things that are part of my life, okay? I used to have these back and forth thoughts of what is the best thing I should do? What's the best path I should pursue? And sometimes these circles, this is for self-discipline, these circles, I'd have an idea and then I'd circle and then I'd go to another idea and circle, and then I never felt confident I was making the right decision. I think confidence has a lot to do with self-discipline. I think that a lot of people know, like once they know what it is that they're doing, they can do it. But if you don't know what it is, then you can't do. And when you're trying to dedicate a year of your life to something, it's very hard to say, I'm going to dedicate a year and know that this is the right direction, the right path, and not question along the way, like, am I on the right path? Should I maybe do this? Should I maybe do that? And then that is the crippling force to self-discipline. You stop doing, right? Then you jump to the other thing, and then you start doing, and then you stop doing because you don't have the confidence. With AI, you can have that confidence. You can have that dialogue, right? You could say, hey, I am prone to being a risky person. You can literally tell AI this. Hey, look, I'm really trying to work on my self-discipline. Hey, I'm really trying to work on this business opportunity. I got these 3 different business opportunities that I could pursue. They all look like great options. Which one looks like maybe the best option for me? And you could have that back and forth dialogue to get a really good judge of like, this is pretty good. What I've done though, and also I'll take it more than just having a basic conversation with AI, is I realized that most and majority of what I do in life is about risk assessment. And I never used to think this way, but if you think about starting a business, right? If you do the stats, it's like something like 99% of businesses go out of business. And a lot of times us as entrepreneurs, us as people that believe it ourselves, we like to believe that we're not the statistic. We're like, that's not going to be me, so it'll be just fine. And the truth is most times it's actually not fine. And so instead of that being so like soul crushing, you're like, oh my God, I guess I shouldn't start a business. That would again be to stop you from self-discipline of just doing, because you might hear something on a podcast like that, or you might hear it and you're like, I'm just not going to do it because, oh well, I'm terrible. And it's self-fulfilling, because if you maybe are doing business but you're doing not so good at business, then it could stop you. Then it could be like the force that stops you. But I think if you think more about this with the combination of AI and risk assessment, and AI can be the thing that helps you evaluate risk, you could be more self-disciplined about your decision making. For instance, if we think of ourselves or think of our life, as like you may have heard the advice, right? Invest in the S&P 500 or save for retirement or something along those lines. And these are good, sound pieces of advice. You want to make sure that you invest in something that is let's call it low risk, low return, or low risk, moderate return. And that's a good thing. You know what else is low risk, moderate return? A job, like a W-2 job. You get a job, and you may hate your job. You're like, this is the worst job ever. I don't get, like, whatever. But guess what? As far as your financial independence or your financial security, getting a job and being able to stick at a job for a couple of years, that is not that volatile. That's pretty good. You're able to bank up a good bit of cash, and it may be low risk, right? Not anything. You're not doing anything crazy, and you get moderate returns. You get okay returns. You're not getting maybe low returns specifically, but you're getting moderate returns, and that's okay. That's good. I think for us squirrels, we are a lot of times high risk people. We like to take the high gambles, the high, like, if I only did this, if I just commit a whole month of my life right now at this speed, boom, let's go, it's all going to work out. And it could, but again, that way of thinking is high risk, high reward, okay? So there's a place for high risk, high reward. It's just a matter of how we allocate our risk. Does that make sense? So, for instance, if we give the example still of the job and starting a business, let's say that you're like, hey, I want to quit my job and start a business. Well, evaluating the risk and saying, if I quit my job and then this business doesn't start going immediately, I'm fucked. I'm screwed. So that is high risk, high reward. Not a good decision to make, okay? Or at least for 100% of your portfolio, which is your time and your whatever. 100% of whatever you're allocating your time, energy, space to. But instead, what a good allocation, or what you might see, is maybe an 80-20, or a 70-30, or a 60-40, okay? And that is really interesting. And this is where you come back to AI, where you could start to have an idea that is high risk, okay? And maybe what you're currently doing, which might be low risk, and you can say, hey, comes all back to self-discipline. Hey, how many hours I can technically work 12 hours a day, okay? I'm good with it. I'm okay with this. This is the amount of time that I'm willing to invest in my future, in myself. How many hours should I work? Maybe how many hours should I do this low risk, moderate return investment? How much time should I invest there? And then how much time should I invest in this high risk, high reward opportunity? And how many of those high risk, high reward opportunities should I take on? You can literally go back and do this. I really recommend you do this. And what this does is it gives you permission, okay? It gives you permission to do both. It gives you permission to realize, okay, I'm going to take care of my security here and take care of my job or whatever, or something like that. Same with if you're investing. S&P 500, great, or your 401k or your Roth IRA. You'll get a consistent, 8 to 10% return each year, based off of that. And that's just been based off of 100 years of the, that performance. So that is, you can bet on that a little bit better. You're like, okay, cool, great. But you also may want to buy Apple stock. You may want to also invest in your business, right? This is actually real money, investing in your business. A lot of times you're like, why would I put money into my business? I want my business to give me money. Well, obviously it takes money to grow money. So you can make these decisions with AI. And they give you very valid reasons, very valid reasoning behind maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. Here goes the thing. So if you're a squirrel like me and you struggle with self-discipline, here's your out. Here's your ability to also benchmark, right? AI is you can literally tell it where you are right now, okay? I did this today with my YouTube channel. Here goes screenshots of what my YouTube's growth is. I uploaded 2 videos and I uploaded 24 shorts, okay? Great. My goal is X or Y. I only want to be doing this for so long. And as you progress, you can continue to give it the feedback, and it can help you understand where you are in the picture. It can also help you understand when you should quit, okay? I've been a big proponent of not quit. I either quit way too soon or I never quit, which both of those are problems, okay? There's a quote, I guess, with like Elon Musk or something, where it's like, if you're not if you're not failing 20% of the time, at least 20% of the time, then you're not taking enough risk. And I think there's some truth to that. As creatives, we always, or as thought leaders, as people that are driven by hard work, I think by nature we are risk takers. And you can get rewarded, okay? You can get rewarded for that. So let me talk about the other side of that, right? So the conservative side in that was like, okay, you have your job that you're working, which is, you said you're going to dedicate 10 hours or 12 hours a day. And so let's just say that we go with the 70-30 rule. I'm going to do a quick calculation. So we have 12 hours times 0.7. So that means that you'll work about 8.4 hours at your job, which does kind of make sense, okay? And then 12 hours times 0.3 means that you'll work about 3.6 or 3.5 hours on high risk, high reward opportunities. Now, high risk, high reward opportunities can provide outsized returns, okay? So let's just say that you're making, $80,000 a year at your job. Great, cool. Or it could be $50,000, or it doesn't matter what you're making, but whatever your current state is, that is consistently making you money, okay? And that's great. But what you really want to do is a lot of times with the 30% that you're investing your time in, you don't want something that's going to give you like a little bump, right? You're not trying to go to the next opportunity that's like $90,000 versus $80,000 or $60,000 versus $50,000 or whatever. You want to add the next zero, okay? You want to add the next zero to your bank account, or if you're more conservative, double. So if you're at $80,000, the high risk, high reward, and this is where self-discipline all comes together, because all we're doing is hard work. That's all it is. It's focus. It's being focused on something so that you can achieve outsized returns. If you have your conservative base covered, and you've dedicated discipline to that, because you know that it's not going to make you drop off a cliff, now you can also have self-discipline in the risky investments, the risky times. So if you're thinking like, okay, well, what can make me $800,000 a year? Those are not the same opportunities as what you're in right now, okay? And you start looking and thinking and kind of being like, okay, well, what's also my time horizon? How much time do I want to invest to get there? Which is also self-discipline, making a moment of being like, a lot of times we want the thing now. We want something in 1 month, okay? A relationship. Think about a relationship, okay? If you can't expect everything to move in a month and I made all this stuff in just 1 month. Like, again, high risk, high reward. If you apply high risk plus time horizon, right? The amount of time, energy that you're willing to invest in that, a lot of times you can get the returns that you're looking for. But clearing all this fog in your head that makes you question whether you're making the right decision is the answer. Do that with AI. Do that with risk assessment. 70-30, 80-20, 60-40. And guess what? When one of those outsized returns do return a ridiculous, amount, this is the same thing as the stock market. You can't automatically be like, whoa, I made $20,000 this month from the business. Now, screw my day job. Like, let's push it off the table. Now, this is the thing. I've been that person so many times. Trust me, don't do that. You have the thing that is continuing to give you consistent returns, low risk, moderate return. You have the thing that's giving you an outsized return, but again, it's high risk, high reward. You want to prove that this risk, this thing that you're doing, let's say the business that's now performing high, is going to consistently give you returns, which might take it from a high risk to a moderate risk to maybe even low risk. And the only way that you could test that is time horizon. Did this business perform for 3 months, 6 months at this capacity? If so, great. Now it's maybe time to phase the time that I dedicate to this job out. I might have been dedicating 70% of my time. Maybe now I'm dedicating 50% and 40%, 20%. And eventually it's like off the table, okay? And then the high risk one that was high risk, which is now around moderate risk, moderate reward, low risk, high reward, or whatever, in your sense of whatever you're kind of thinking, it's kind of now your new baseline. And guess what? Now you have time. You're dedicating 70% of your time to that. And now you have time, 30% of your time, or 20%, or whatever you decided to allocate, towards the next zero in your bank account or the next big feat. Okay? You can't have all high risk in your portfolio, because you will be devastated. You will bet and you will lose at some point every time. You have to take care of the kids, take care of all that. And if you learn to understand, also, let's say that you dedicate 6 months to this thing and it's not showing any sort of return, or it's floundering even further down. It's okay. This was high risk, high reward. You take that, assess it, and be like, okay, got it. This one's not it. Trade that one out for the next one. And you could juggle, say, 2 of these at the same time, right? Kind of makes sense. If you want to, this is the high risk, high reward category, great, whatever. We're going to bet on 2 things. One might lose, they both might lose, but I'm okay. I'm okay with that 30% of my time going to nothing, because again, I'm actually learning so much in this time anyways. You're not really losing everything. You may have not gotten you to that point, but again, you can take more and more bets in this 30% area. Keep that 70% safe and consistent. Keep giving it the same passion, the same energy. That's self-discipline. AI, it's self-discipline. Let's move on to part 2. Part 2, the sacred calendar. If you don't listen to anything in this at all, please hear this part. Your calendar, I know it sounds so boring. You're like, oh my God, the calendar, blah, blah, blah. Like every time management productivity expert is always talking about the calendar and the to-do list and all that. And I think all this stuff great, important, but for me, as a squirrel, as a person that has all these ideas in my head, I have a very simple calendar, and I'm not afraid to adjust my calendar. But I think that, I think this takes time and phases, because I think most of you may not be specifically where I'm at in my journey. It took me a very long time to have the freedom to make my calendar, really make my calendar how I need it to be, or how I want it to adjust, or how I want to pretty much just have freedom of my calendar. Okay. So with your calendar technically represents where you spend, emphasis on spend your time, okay? Say it again. Your calendar is a representation of where you spend your time. There are many things on your calendar that you spend your time and energy and life force on without outsized returns, okay? many events that you don't actually want to go to, many things you don't want to do. There's a lot of this stuff. There's just a lot of this stuff that's there. And it may not be that you wrote this down on your calendar, but if you look at your 24 hours that you have in a day, of those 24 hours, how many hours are there really for you to dedicate to the hard work that needs doing? Okay? I think I've told you my calendar in the previous, video, and most people are, in this system of, I'll work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Okay, that's 40 hours, and this is not a claim to being like burning yourself out. So just know yourself. But I do think that if you are trying to get where you want to be, and self-discipline is literally part of all of that, being able to say, all right, this is where I'm trying to go. I'm going to be self-disciplined about this. Let's go. If you're trying to either increase the probability that you'll get there or decrease the time horizon to get there, being in control of all of your hours and dedicating the most amount of hours that you can or want to makes probably the most sense. Now, I am a father of 6 boys. In March, our 6th boy will be born. Okay? And so I know a bit about time management or lack of time management, or lack of being pulled in many directions. Okay? Being a good father, being a good husband, being a good person of society, all these things are very important to your existence. So this right here, what I'm about to say, past this is far from screw the world, screw everyone else, let me just do whatever I'm going to do and everyone sucks and I'm like, what? Like, you don't want to be the negative, nasty person of the world that is just a recluse that only cares about themselves and doesn't care about anyone else. Okay? With that being said, I think that if you really dig deep, I think that there's actually few things that you actually care about in the world. So it's not a matter of caring about everything. It's about caring the most about the most important things or people or in the world. Okay? So if you look at what I care about, or if you deep dive into kind of that, if you take a second to look at what makes Will, I care deeply for my boys, right? So as a father to my boys, care deeply about my marriage. I care deeply about my work that I do. And you can put work in the bucket of all the things, and the work can change within the bucket, but I care deeply about work. I love it. And then, in addition to that, I care deeply about, and you can put this in the hobbies mix, whatever, I don't know, whatever you want to put it in, but I love movies and knowledge and just learning things and understanding things. I love that stuff. And then what's also really strange in the maybe the best way, I don't have that many very deep friends that I have. I have a few, and I think most people kind of have maybe a few, but I care deeply about every interaction I have with people that I interact with every day. And if you've been around me, if you know me, you'll know that almost every person that I interact with, as I come into, wow, that's a beautiful tattoo. Wow, you look like you have great energy today. Whoa, you're like even though these are very small micro interactions, and I don't really know these people, I can feel their existence, I can feel them, and I can see like, whoa, like your hair, like, wow, like you can definitely tell someone took time to do what they did. And that's part of you. And so I care deeply about that as well. Okay? The rest of everything else that exists in the world is pretty much not on my radar. Okay? Like, that's pretty much the bucket of which, I give my energy, my time to, my space to. And I'm cool with that. So I think looking at what you really care deeply about first will allow you to have self-discipline when other things come to try to spend your time. Okay? There are thieves out there, like truly. Okay? Hey, I think I've talked about opportunity costs previous in one of our episodes, but let's say that you are. We're going to have to figure out a little light here at some point. Jesus. Let's say that, you have decided that you're going to work. You're working. And let's say that you get paid $40 an hour for the work that you do. Okay? If someone asks you to do something for them, like, hey, can you do me a favor? And it's something that does not align with those things that I just kind of talked about that are specific to you. And you say, instead of you saying no, which you should say no. Instead of you saying no, you say, which is self-discipline, no. You say yes, all of a sudden, they're taking from you in two ways, okay? One, let's say that the thing that they need you to do takes 3 hours, okay? You could have used that energy and time and space to make $120, okay? $120 right there. And then two, let's say that what they need you to do cost you resources, whether that's gas going to their place, their whatever, whether that's, oh, let's go hang out, let's go to the bar, let's go do X and do Y, something that you didn't actually want to do. You're now spending also your resources on that, okay? So that thing that you should have said no to costs you income and it costs you expenses. Two ways. A lot of times as well, if you think about this, if you think about marketplace, this is another place of opportunity cost where you should think about this stuff. Let's say you have a couch that is $100 on marketplace. Great, gonna buy it. $100, that's wonderful. But it's, let's say, in Georgia, which is 4 hours away, okay? So the cost of the couch, $100, the 4 hours there, and the 4 hours back, 8 hours that you could be working, okay? So you have 100, let's say you're making, $40 an hour. That's $320 of opportunity cost, $100 of actual cost. That couch really cost you $420. If you saw it that way, you probably wouldn't have bought the couch. But that's the reality, okay? That's really what it is. Time, you spend time, and you also make money by giving away your time. So you can either be making money, growing your money, giving away your time, or you could be spending money and also spending your time. Two double negatives. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean that we work 24/7, 365 without any fun or without whatever. Like, that's not what we do. We want to live a rich life. We want to have an amazing life. So when we're willing to spend our time and also spend our resources, our money, best believe we should do that with the people that matter the most to us, okay? Because it is a double expense. Whether hopefully you've kind of gotten that point. It's a double expense. You're spending time, which is opportunity cost, and you're spending money a lot of times to have fun. Go buy that new dress, go buy that whatever. You're spending resources, going out to eat. So two expenses. Time and money are synonymous. They're both the same thing, back and forth things. So being self-disciplined about where your time and where your money goes is extremely important. And that's why a calendar, coming back to calendar, is really important for you to block your time so that you have you're making the most amount of money. And then when you spend your time and money together, they're with for the things that you care deeply about. And that's what my calendar looks like. So I'll tell you what it is. Again, it's pretty much, and this can change. It doesn't have to be solid, flat, the same thing always forever, but this changes sometimes. Right now, I work from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m., 7 hours. So that's 7 hours of income generation. Take however much it is that you make per hour. Okay. And this is where it's a little different with W-2 people and contract people, because W-2 people they're capped at 8 hours of how much money they could make. If I'd say if you are capped at that 8 hour amount, 5 days a week type of thing, I would definitely look at, again, remember how we talked about that's your low risk, moderate return investment that you're making. I would then reallocate any time after that, because let's just say you're doing 12 hours, 4 hours especially, to that other opportunity vehicle that you're trying to do to add the extra zero to your bank account. So you still technically can. W-2 people technically still can use all of their time. It's just one is giving you immediate money return, low risk, low return, or low risk, moderate return. And then you can take your other bit of time, even though you're not getting paid by a person yet, to invest to try to get yourself, paid in another way. My calendar, again, is 6 to 1. Then, how we talked about spending time and money, from 1 to 5, that is when I'm with my boys and my wife, okay? My family. We may go on an adventure. We may go to the forest. We may play video games. We may stay at home. We may do whatever. But I am absolutely okay with those 4 hours being spent on the most beautiful, best things of my life. My family. I love that. Now, this doesn't mean that you just spend everything and whatever you want, all the money, just because that's, the most important part. But if you follow Ramit Sethi, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, literally go over there, watch his show, binge watch it, and he'll talk a lot about guilt-free spending, okay? And so we have a bucket of guilt-free spending for every single day. This envelope's empty, but pretty much I'll just take cash out, put cash in here, and don't need to feel guilty at all. This is, again, self-discipline. You just self-discipline's paired with also, because you're being disciplined about all the other parts in your life, you can have the freedom and the relax and the okay to be able to do something fun. And so, like, this envelope would have, cash or money in it. If we decide to go spend some money today, great. If not, that's okay too. But it's there to be spent. It's not there to be saved. It's not there to do anything but consume, but to be spent. Okay? And every single day, I'm a contract worker now, every single day I'm adding more money to this envelope. Okay? You kind of need to, I'll just make an example of how much maybe should go in here so that we can have a real example. But let's say that you're making $300 a day, okay? If you have your, let's say you're making $300 a day, in Ramit's kind of budget or conscious spending plan, in his plan, he highly recommends, like, doing 20 to 35% for guilt-free spending. Okay. So with that being said, let's say you're making $300 a day, every day. I work every day. Again, you can average this out. If you do just use AI, use whatever, you can average this out. Figure out how much you're making per month, and then you can divide that by 30. So let's just say that if you're making, $300 a day, you're making about $9,000 combined. And so then you can kind of work backwards and do the math. If you're making $200 a day or $150 a day, like you can do the math, okay? Then what you do is you take whatever percentage that you followed in your conscious spending plan, and if you don't have one of those, let's just say 20%, okay? That you're willing to just kind of take and enjoy life. So 20% of $300 per day should be $60, if my math is correct. So every day, putting $60 in, $60 in, $60 in. And this is for you to go have fun, live life. All your other expenses, like your fixed costs or whatever, which are anywhere from 50 to 60%, because you've kind of adjusted, they're good, they're great. So I think a lot of the squirrely attitude that a lot of us have, myself included, is built out of being unsure, insecurity of being unsure, or not feeling in control. You're floundering, you're going all over the place, and you don't have to be there. And if you are self-disciplined enough, if you look at my calendar, 6 to 1, and then 1 to 5 is family time, and then I go back out from 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. 14 hours a day. That's what I do. I work 14 hours a day, sleep for about 6, with the fam for about 4, and that 7 days a week. Again, adjust to what you do. But you have control over your time. If you look at your calendar, even if for instance, the kids go to school, all that stuff, you look at the calendar, you look at the things that you can't move around, and then you block your time out through that. And you try to take out everything else that doesn't really matter. Self-discipline. That is what I mean by a sacred calendar. Your calendar is the money and time that you're spending. And if you start to equate the opportunity cost that you're wasting by investing in low energy people, or investing in low energy opportunities, let's just say going out to the bar with your friend, or with a friend that you really don't care about, versus you making money instead, and what that money then also means to your future self and all the things that you can do, you'd have a different perspective. It would change. And so I'm hoping this changes something for you, because it did for me. All right, let's go on to part 3. Hard work at 100. I used to think that I did hard work for 10 years of my career. I think I did a really good knowledge work, okay? I was really good at figuring out leverage. I think maybe that was the early part of my career. I learned how to utilize leverage. I didn't know it was leverage at the time, but I learned how to do something once, and then it had a ripple effect of 100 times or 100x on the other side. For instance, learning to code, writing functions, what you do is you look at a problem that's kind of reoccurring, you're like, ugh, this thing happened a couple again. And then you look at it and you're like, how can I write a code so that never happens again? Okay. And that is super powerful for you to be able to say, okay, let me write a function that has these parameters, and then it solves this problem forever. That, in a sense, is leverage, okay? Because if the opposite of that, let's put the opposite. Let's say that before I wrote this code, whatever the problem was, it took me an hour to take care of. I'm using hour to make this easy. Then every single time that instance occurred, let's just say that it occurred weekly, okay, I would then have to spend another hour fixing it. And again, we're not even going to put an opportunity cost on what that other hour could be used doing whatever. We're just spending this hour, that's it, okay? Over a year, that's 52 hours. That's more than one normal person's work week on that one problem. And if you think about multiple problems that probably come up that are in your life, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 of those, if that occurred every single week, that's like 10 of your weeks gone in a year out of 52. Big deal, okay? And so with programming, what you do is you see the problem. The rule of thumb is this. If something happens 3 times over, there needs to be a function for it. Let's just say, for instance, in your house, you keep on tripping over the same Lego, and you've tripped over it 3 times. There needs to be now a system in place to make sure that never happens again. That I will never trip over this godforsaken Lego again or step on it ever again. And that's smart. That's leverage, because all of a sudden, by you making a system, you've now bought back some of your time that would have otherwise been spent again tripping over this Lego for the rest of your life, okay? So with programming, that's the idea. If something happens 3 times over, something should go off. You're like, oh shit, okay, got it. Need to make a function for that. And I got really good over my whole career with hearing people's problems that they have and being able to write functions for those problems, being able to solve those problems forever. Now, sometimes the system or the function that you write needs a little bit of maintenance or update or whatever. That might be like once a quarter or whatever. Or it may take like an initial spurt of energy. It might take you 10 hours or 5 hours to really write the function or the code. But that's still better than the 50 hours per year that you're spending on it. It's written, it's done. So I really learned leverage early on. Didn't know it was leverage, but it's leverage. Alex Hormozy talks a lot about what leverage is in a lot of his stuff. So definitely follow him and listen to him, because he just has a way of getting foundational knowledge down to down to core units to be able to understand it. But he says there's 4 types of leverage. Pretty much one, there's people, right? So there's labor. So let's say that I am paid $40 an hour, but I can find someone to do the same job that I'm doing right now for $20 an hour. I should pay that every time, because now I can then use my time. I can pretty much buying back my time to then reinvest it in continuing to make $40 an hour versus doing a $20 an hour task theoretically or whatever. So there's labor, and a good example of that is Fiverr. So you look at what you're doing right now. A lot of us are creatives or whatever, and we kind of just create and we do all the labor. But a lot of times you got to be the CEO. You got to level up to be the manager and then the CEO of your own business, because you're able to leverage time. Again, if we remember throughout this whole thing about self-discipline, okay, that leverage or that time and money are the same thing, and that you are limited to 24 hours a day in your day, really about 18 if you count sleep, to use that time to either increase income or decrease income, or increase opportunity or decreased opportunity. Why would you not want to then leverage other hours of other people, instead of you have 24 hours in your day or 18 hours in your day, but then you also have 8 and 8 and 8 and 8 and 8 of other people, because you're able to kind of pay them. Again, remember, money and time is the same thing. You've worked, generated the money, or you spent your time getting money so that you can then buy someone else's time so that they can then make you more money on the other side. I know it's a lot. Leverage. Labor. So you got labor, right? Which is people. Then you have capital, which is, let's say, for instance, Again, this is all Alex's stuff. This is not my stuff. Capital, which you got to be very careful with this if you don't understand how it works. I don't even think I'm to this level just yet. But capital, you could technically, let's say that you take a loan for $10,000, at, I don't know, let's just say 5%. I'm not going to get too deep into the interest, but obviously you know that you're paying 5% of that $10,000 loan every year, the APR. Let's actually just make it 10% so it's easy for my brain to equate, okay? You got a $10,000 loan, you got a 10% interest rate, so that means that every year you're paying them $1,000 extra on that loan. Now, if you could use that $10,000 loan, again, do not do this if you're not comfortable with any of this stuff, because debt is a real thing and it can really screw up your life. But if you understand how advertising works, right? Pay-per-click advertising or whatever, you then use that loan, that $10,000 loan, to then pay for, let's just say you're paying $100 a day over and over and over again. That's really $3,000 a month. So let's say that you really have 3 months of time horizon that you're buying over 3 months of $100 a day in advertising. If you were able to just generate 2 clients out of that 3-month horizon, that 100-day horizon-ish, 90-day really, 2 clients at $5,000 each, you could pay for that loan. Obviously, there's some interest that needs to be paid on that. Let's just make it 3 people. You're able to generate $15,000 off of that $10,000 loan, and best believe you already created the engine to then start rolling in more people, okay? So that capital is leverage. You didn't have $10,000, but you were able to use that $10,000 to then flip to $15,000 or $20,000 based off of that. Again, this will come back to self-discipline, okay? You have to know yourself, your risk you got to know risk, okay? You got to understand how it is with you, where you feel. Am I willing to burn $100 a day until I figure out this thing? Most people would say no. I'm not willing to set the Benjis on fire. But if you know that, let's just say again, here we go, back and forth between time and money. If you're making $50 an hour or you're making $30 an hour, whatever, let's keep it consistent with 40. If you know that for you to learn this thing, okay, of advertising, and you have to burn $100 a day until you figure it out, you have $100 here, but you know that because you make 40 an hour, that really translates to a little less than 3 hours of your time, okay? So am I willing to spend 3 hours of time to learn this? That's really what that equates to, because you're doing the time elsewhere. You're going to go make the money, 3 of your hours, $120, to burn $100 so that you can then learn this thing. Or the capital, like we talked about, the capital is already doing that. That's 2 of 4 things of leverage. Then you have code, okay? Coding's a way of doing this, right? You pay a software engineer, a person, to build something that then it's a robot. It does it over and over and over again instead of someone else having to manually do it every single time. I did this with what was called the label builder at New Human. We'd have a lot of human errors, a lot of back and forth, adding the copyrights, adding the ingredient titles, etc., blah, blah, blah. And then I wrote a function, a label builder with my friend Isaac to do all of that automatically every single time, automated. And I can't tell you the thousands of hours I've probably saved that company. And that's real leverage. They now don't have to pay people for the manual labor hours, and they can then reinvest those hours later on other things. The last one is media, okay? And that would be like you making a book. You make the book one time, and then you can distribute it, and forever you get paid off of that one book you made. Or you make a YouTube video right here, making a YouTube video, and I'm making this one time, but thousands of people can watch me say exactly the same thing in the exact same mannerisms across the internet. That's leverage. Instead of me having to talk to 1,000 people for however long this video is, which is probably an hour, instead of me having to invest 1,000 hours of my time, which is, bro, that's a lot of money, I make an hour-long video, okay, that then gets distributed by YouTube, the algorithm, all that stuff, and you guys still see it, but I didn't have to take all the time to kind of tell every one by one by one by one by one, okay? So leverage is really important to your time and money, and it's very important to your self-discipline, because you can be self-disciplined and be working really hard, but working really hard in the wrong, as Alex says, opportunity vehicle, okay? And I think that I got so caught up in self-discipline, or lack of, whatever, vice versa, the wrong opportunity vehicle, right? I've attached my identity heavily to being a creative director, and I love creative direction. It's amazing. But there are caps to that opportunity. And I always, as Gary Vee might say, demonized a lot of other type of work, which a lot of it has a lot of hard work in it. I got really good off of knowledge work, which allows me a lot of leverage, but then there's also hard work, like Uber and Walmart deliveries and stuff like that, that actually can be outsized to the cap that is like a W-2. I'm making much more than what I was doing at the W-2 that I had, but for a long time, it was this. For a long time, I struggled very hard with contract work because I didn't understand the game or the rules of it. And so I always looked at like the W-2 work, or I just need to get another job back at a person, just until I did figure it out, until I got self-disciplined, okay? I didn't have the self-discipline because I was always looking at the other shiny object. I had a career that did great. And so that was the shiny object of, I just need to get back here. And so I did not invest, and I did not have the self-discipline to invest the actual real energy and time that's required to make this go to 100, okay? And so I don't think it matters exactly it doesn't matter what your industry is. I think if you don't give it the 100%, you don't get the outsized returns. You may get lucky. Like, I've had a lot of luck in my career, but I think, like Alex says, like, hard work negates luck. All right, we made it to part 4. Oh my God. Beautiful burnout. This might be my favorite section right here. Again, it took me so long to figure this out and learn this. And I know that so many people struggle with this. I know this. So I'm here. I'm happy to be here to share this with you. Beautiful burnout, okay? There are normal people in the world. Not that person, but there are normal people in the world that can work kind of regular pace, doing their thing. They can do it consistently. They take regular breaks, weekends. They do those things, and I'm like, look at them, and I'm like, I love that you could do this, because I can't do that. I wish I could. I wish that I could be the person that was like, it's gonna take a weekend. I'm gonna stop working out for 2 days. I'm gonna stop doing whatever for 2 days. I'm gonna just right back to it. It's very hard for me to do that. I figured that out some point in my career, but I only think it was because it was forced, okay? I think it was because, like, the job's like, you gotta be here at this time. And so, unless you want to get fired, better be there. But leave me to my own demise, and I can't work 5 days, okay? So what I do, and this seems, and you look at these people, and you're like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? I work 7 days a week, nonstop, all the hours I work, okay? And there's a beautiful benefit to that, right? If you're working almost every hour of all the days, you get to get the cash flows up, bro. So there's a beauty to all of that, but mega downside to that. Okay, what happens when you're working all those days and all of a sudden, like, you just have one of those hard, you have a hard day. And the hard days can happen from a lot of things. Hard days can happen from you got into an argument in your relationship. Hard days could be like you get sick. Hard days could be like you just been running at 100 and now your engine's like, I'm fucking tired, bro. Like, this is terrible. All of a sudden I know this too, because I'll be like, and then I'll have like this slope. Note that slope. Don't note this slope, okay? You need to, you start to kind of feel it right there. That's the point that you need to recognize, okay? This is very important. If you could let yourself go down here, it's much harder to get right back up, okay? That's step one, okay? So in the beautiful burnout, for people that go 100, 120, 100, 200, whatever they're going, you have to feel when your body is saying, it's giving that, You're still good to work, but it's doing that, okay? You feel that. Very important. When you feel that, there's a SOP, there's a set of rules, a standard operation procedures that Will does that keeps me good, okay? One, if you're working 100 days straight, you're working all the days, whatever. If at any point in time you want to take a half day, and that's funny because like most people are like, you should take a whole day. Most people that are having work like that, half days are great for them. If you need to take a half day, great. Like, take a half day. The first rule is to be kind to yourself, okay? Like, you work hard, and so therefore you can be kind. Whenever you have a moment that you just are like not feeling it, you're sick, whatever, anything that I want to do for that day, I do for myself. The money, I may work an hour, I may work 5 hours, I may go to the movie theater, may get, a couple of double shot, more espresso, might be, some, might, instead of me eating one pastry, it might be 5 of these pastries. I don't know. It's like you're extremely kind to yourself in this moment, because most people on the other side of that, they start to beat themselves up. Why am I not performing like I usually am? I'm such a failure. I'm so terrible. This isn't self-discipline. This isn't this is not the thing. You are a failure, is what people tell themselves when they go here or they go even lower. When you start going lower, you get even further. You start to question what you're doing. All of a sudden, you're like, what am I doing? This is stupid. This is dumb. I can't even work 13 days. I can't even do this. Is this even the right thing? Am I even doing the right thing? Maybe I'm just making, you start to get this heavy doubts, those demons in your mind. Don't want to be there. They happen, but if you create an SOP for yourself, regardless of if you're here or you're here, we are ultra kind to ourselves, okay? Very kind to ourselves. Whatever you need, not what someone else needs, whatever you need, you do that for yourself. You may have a plan that's like, I can only spend, like we said, like $50 of guilt-free spending a day or $30 of guilt-free spending a day, whatever it is that you do. Today, it's okay. This is okay for you to spend more than that if you need to. And by the way, another side segment, let's talk about emergencies real quick, okay? I was very confused about what an emergency fund is for a very long time. Like, don't get me wrong, I knew what an emergency fund was. Like, I knew, okay, this is the thing that you save for an emergency, but like, when do I use it? Because a lot of things can constitute an emergency. And I have a new definition of what an emergency is that I think really is, which I really think circumferences it all, okay? So, Me and my wife, we are in a bit of a traditional setup where I go out and work all the time and she stays home all the time and takes care of our 6 boys, or our 5 boys and 1 to be. Okay. I go out and hunt. She does the gathering and all the things at home. Very traditional. Okay. We're both technically working long hours on both sides. Okay. So you got to be mindful of this, because I think at one point I was very unbalanced on this. Emergency. What is an emergency? For Will and the Mosley family, an emergency is anything that stops income from incoming. That is it. Right there. Anything that stops income from incoming. What does that mean? Okay. So let's say that, I use the car a lot. Let's see that the car gets a flat tire. That's an emergency. Need to take care of that, because if I can't use the car, I can't generate money. Okay? Very simple. Those are pretty clear, pretty simple. Everyone's like, yeah, if a car breaks down, yeah, it's an emergency. Great, whatever. Okay? But more as I kind of went into this, if the operator is unable to generate income, then it's an emergency. Does that make sense? You are the operator, or your partner at home is operator. You guys are both operators. You're both doing the thing. If, for instance, I get sick, okay? Sick means that all of a sudden, and I can't work, that means that income is not incoming. That is an emergency. That is where you should use that emergency at. Whether it is, I'm sick, so I need to really go to the doctor and take care of this, or you can be mentally depressed, okay? And this is a lot of times where that burnout happens. You can be in a state of mind where you're incapable of working because you feel so terrible about yourself. That stops the income from incoming. And if that is where you're at, that is an emergency. Same goes, not just for you, but if you have a partner, your partner. If your partner is at home and they are struggling, having a hard time, and they're not able to do the things that they're usually able to do because of a fight, because of something in the house is stopping them from doing what they need to do, that's an emergency, okay? That is the only thing that I apply that fund to. I don't do it to like, oh, let's go get nail clippers or sweaters or whatever. Like, none of that. If it stops the income from incoming, that's it. I had a moment a couple weeks ago where me and Laura were just feeling really burnt out, Like, we were just having a moment where we were just like, damn. And at that moment in time, I said, let's go on a big date. Let's go on a big ass date. You could say, hey, guilt-free spending's for that. And yeah, use that first. But if you are in a terrible state and it's going to stop you from actually making more money, look at that and be like, I'd rather spend, let's just say that you spend $100 on a date, right? I'd rather spend 3 hours of time. Remember, if you're making 30 or whatever an hour, we'll keep it at 40 actually. If you're making 40 an hour, 3 hours, I'd rather spend $100 or $120. Let's put it up there so we can make it even. 3 hours of my time. I'd rather spend this $120. And I know that because I spent this money to take care of us and feel better, I know that tomorrow I literally can put this in this 100. I can beast mode this 3 hours. Done. Now, obviously, when you're recovering, you have opportunity costs that you're losing too. But again, this comes down to, like, if you're not okay, everyone's not okay. You got to put the mask on first, right? So you're okay, so that you can also take care of everybody else, which is what the income's for. The income is so that you can keep your house and, have your house and pay your electric bills and pay all the bills that keep you with the lifestyle that you love, and also have money to kind of do the things that you enjoy and grant you the freedoms to make the things that you want to make. So that is the beautiful burnout. You, one, are very kind to yourself. 2, if it's really an emergency, it is okay to spend money to take care of yourself, to get yourself back up to, operational. It may be that you're back up to 60, 70, 80%, whatever. It doesn't have to be 100. We will get back up to 100 because we are hard workers regardless, but we need a little bit of push to get us up there. And then lastly, 3, this is it. I lock myself out of the control room. I don't press any red buttons when I'm in burnout mode, when I'm in not feeling good mode. No big decisions in this moment because I'm liable to make the worst decisions. I'm just not capable. It's just not, your headspace is not there. And most times your headspace is not just there, it's in a negative space. So why would you want to make the biggest decisions in the most negative mind space? You shouldn't. Make the big decisions when you're in a positive mindset, when you can think clearly. Be kind to yourself. Be okay. Like, sometimes this is an emergency, and it's okay to spend the money to get yourself out of the emergency of mental emergency. Don't make any big decisions. No red buttons. Okay? Coming back to our thesis, yes, you can have self-discipline in multiple areas of your life, but you have to choose what areas are most important to you. Like Ramit Sethi says, live your rich life. Turn your money dials up on the things that matter most and cut viciously on the things that don't matter. Yes, you have to sacrifice things that aren't serving you. That means toxic relationships and time-wasting activities. Your time and attention are your most valuable asset. Don't give them away to people that don't value you, your time, and where you're going. Pain is definitely part of the equation. You got to learn to endure for outsized returns. That doesn't mean that you can't have fun. Hard work isn't optional. And I know for people that have been used to doing either the bare minimum or kind of just like coasting by, it's going to be pretty painful once you realize turning it up to 100 means that I got to do this. What am I doing? If not for what life, what am I doing? And so it is painful at first. It was painful for me to kind of go and turn that dial up. It's hard to be self-disciplined and commit to something every single day and not move the needle all over the place, here, there, that. It takes time, it takes commitment, but don't let it stop you. Like we said in part 4, go 100. Do your best work, but be okay when you need a break. If you need a half day or a whole day, or you need to give yourself something, buy yourself a shirt, what doesn't matter, whatever it is, be kind to yourself and then get back on the horse and go 100 again. If you love this video, you can deep dive into how to set meaningful goals, video popping up, whichever, on the screen right now.